The rejection letter landed on the kitchen table like a verdict, and Marcus Reyes stared at it until the words blurred, because 3 years of sleepless nights, burnt coffee, and a daughter's trusting eyes had just been reduced to a single stamped word: denied. He was not an engineer by trade. He was a night shift hospital janitor in Toledo, Ohio, a man who mopped floors under fluorescent lights while doctors in white coats walked past him like he was furniture. But Marcus had a daughter, Ren, 7 years old, born with a heart defect that required more surgeries than birthdays she'd had. And somewhere between waiting rooms and sterile hallways, watching machines beep and falter, watching nurses jury-rig failing equipment with tape and prayer, Marcus had noticed something nobody else seemed to see. The cardiac monitors kept losing calibration during long procedures, forcing surgeons to pause, reset, sometimes losing precious seconds that could mean the difference between a heartbeat and silence. So he built something. In his garage, after Ren was asleep, using parts ordered off clearance websites and knowledge scraped together from library books and free online courses, Marcus built a self-calibrating sensor module, a small, unglamorous little device that could keep a monitor steady through even the longest, most brutal surgeries. He believed it could save lives. He believed it could save time. He believed, more than anything, that it could give families like his one less thing to fear in that terrifying gap between the operating room doors closing and opening again. Before we go further into Marcus's story, if you believe in second chances, if you believe kindness and quiet determination still mean something in this world, hit that like button, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House, because stories like this one deserve to be heard. The hospital administration's rejection wasn't cruel, not exactly. It was worse than cruel, it was indifferent. A polished woman named Diane Coulter, director of clinical innovations, had barely glanced at his prototype before sliding it back across the desk. Mr. Reyes, I appreciate the initiative, truly. But we work with certified vendors, established manufacturers with FDA-cleared pipelines. This is admirable, but it's not something we can bring into an operating room. She said it kindly, the way you'd tell a child their finger painting wasn't going in the Louvre, and Marcus had nodded, thanked her for her time, and walked back to the supply closet where his mop and bucket waited, because his shift started in 20 minutes. That night, driving home past midnight, he sat in his car outside their small rented house and let himself cry, just for a minute, just enough to release the pressure before he had to walk inside and be strong for Ren. She was staying with his sister, Talia, that night, and when he picked her up the next morning, she asked him, sleepy-eyed, did they like your invention, Daddy? And he lied. He told her they loved it. He couldn't bear to see her small face fall, not when she already carried enough weight for a child her age, not when she'd already learned words like arrhythmia and catheterization before she'd learned long division. Weeks passed. Marcus kept working his shifts, kept refining the device in stolen hours, kept telling himself that maybe Diane Coulter was right, maybe this was foolish, maybe a janitor with no engineering degree had no business thinking he could outsmart million-dollar medical equipment companies. He nearly gave up. He genuinely nearly did, standing in his garage one evening holding the device, ready to toss it in a drawer forever, when Ren wandered in, half asleep in her pajamas, and touched the small blinking sensor with her finger. Is this the thing that helps hearts not get confused? She asked, and Marcus, throat tight, said yes. Then you have to keep trying, she said, simple as that, the way only a child can cut through years of doubt with one sentence, and walked back to bed. The turning point came from an unlikely place, a cardiac surgeon named Drive. Adaze Nusu, who had been operating at St. Vincent's the week Ren was born, and who remembered, vaguely, the quiet janitor who used to bring her coffee during Ren's early surgeries without ever being asked, simply because he noticed she worked through her breaks. Dr. Nusu ran into Marcus in the hospital parking lot one afternoon, both of them exhausted in different ways, and asked what the strange little device peeking out of his bag was. Marcus, embarrassed, almost brushed it off. But something in her face made him explain it properly, the calibration drift problem, the failsafe he'd built, the way it could theoretically buy surgeons an extra 90 seconds of stability during high-risk procedures. Dr. Nusu asked to test it. Not officially, unofficially, on a simulation rig in a research lab after hours, the kind of quiet favor doctors do for each other when curiosity outweighs protocol. What she found stunned her. The calibration held steady through simulated stress tests that made the hospital's current standard equipment falter. She called a colleague, a trauma surgeon named Drive, Felix Baptiste, and asked him to look at it too, half expecting him to dismiss it the way administration had. Instead, Felix spent 2 hours with Marcus's schematics, asking rapid-fire questions Marcus could actually answer, because he'd lived with this problem in the trenches, watching monitors fail in real time while doctors he respected fought to keep patients alive. Word moved through the hospital the way it always does among people who've spent years trusting their instincts more than paperwork. A pediatric surgeon reached out. Then an anesthesiologist. Then a visiting specialist from Cleveland who happened to be at St. Vincent's for a conference and asked, almost in disbelief, "Wait, the janitor built this?" Marcus started receiving messages from surgeons he'd only ever seen walking briskly through hallways, men and women who held human hearts in their hands for a living, all asking the same quiet, urgent question: can we use this? Can we license this? Can we help you protect this? Diane Coulter, to her credit, wasn't a villain in this story, just a woman doing her job within rigid systems built to protect against liability, not innovation born from love. When 6 senior surgeons independently requested a meeting with her about the very device she'd dismissed months earlier, she sat through the presentation with visible discomfort, then genuine surprise, then something like humility. She asked Marcus, directly this time, why he hadn't pushed back harder the first time. Marcus simply said, "I didn't think anyone would believe someone like me could build something worth believing in." The room went quiet after that. Within 4 months, Marcus's device was in formal FDA fast-track evaluation, sponsored jointly by 3 surgeons who'd staked their professional reputations on it. Within 7 months, a small medical technology company offered him a licensing deal that meant Marcus could finally quit his night shifts, not because he was ashamed of them, but because Ren needed her father awake during the day, present for school pickups and homework and ordinary afternoons that suddenly felt like miracles. The device now carries a patent under Marcus's name, and it has since been used in over 200 cardiac procedures, including, almost unbelievably, one of Ren's own follow-up surgeries, where the very machine her father built kept her heart's rhythm steady while surgeons worked. Dr. Nusu still calls Marcus sometimes, just to update him on new cases, new saves, new small miracles his invention quietly makes possible. And Marcus, who once mopped the very hallways where his device now hums beside operating tables, says the proudest moment of his life wasn't the patent, or the licensing deal, or even the surgeons who once overlooked him now shaking his hand with genuine respect. It was Ren, sitting in a hospital bed post-surgery, groggy but smiling, whispering, "Your thing kept my heart calm, Daddy," before drifting back to sleep, safe, steady, and alive. If this story moved something in you, if you believe fathers like Marcus deserve to be seen, if you believe love can outbuild any rejection letter, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment below. We read every single one, and your words remind us why we tell these stories. And before we close this chapter, a special request: if you have a moment, comment the word "believe" below, just that one word, so we know this story reached you, so we know kindness is still traveling from screen to screen, heart to heart. Marcus Reyes still keeps that original rejection letter, framed, hanging in his garage workshop, not as a wound, but as a reminder that sometimes the world says no right before it's about to say the most extraordinary yes.